The campus of Blackridge University had always been known for its prestigious academic programs and century-old traditions. But beneath its scholarly reputation lay a chilling history that few dared to speak about. It started decades ago. Students who walked into the shadows of the campus simply vanished. No explanations, no traces, no bodies, just names whispered in fear, fading into the echoes of the past. Leah Carter had heard the rumors but never paid them any mind. She was a sophomore, majoring in journalism, with a fascination for unraveling urban legends. To her, the missing students were nothing more than a macabre tale, exaggerated over time to keep freshmen from wandering the campus at night. That was until she met Mark, a senior obsessed with proving the disappearances were real. "There's something the school isn't telling us," Mark had insisted one night in the library, his fingers running over old, dust-covered newspaper clippings. "Every 10 years, students go missing. 5 of them every time. And it's always in October." Leah smirked, leaning back in her chair. "You sound like you want to be one of them." "I want to know why no one remembers them," Mark shot back. "How do people just forget their classmates, their friends? It's like they never existed." The thought unsettled her. As much as she wanted to dismiss his theory, there was something undeniably eerie about it. Leah decided to help Mark dig deeper, if only to prove him wrong. Over the next few days, they uncovered chilling records. Student IDs belonging to people who had no digital footprint, yearbook photos with missing names, and most disturbingly, old faculty rosters where professors had resigned right after a disappearance event. Then they found the diary. It was tucked away in the archives, belonging to a student named Claire Hensley. She had vanished in 1983, her case left unsolved. The last entry was hastily scrawled, the ink smeared as if written in panic. "I hear them in the halls, whispering, calling my name. The walls are breathing. The lights flicker when I walk past. I told Dr. Whitmore, but he just smiled and told me to go home. I won't make it home." A chill ran down Leah's spine. Dr. Whitmore was still a professor on campus. That night, Leah and Mark decided to investigate further. They followed the names of the past victims, mapping their last known locations. The common link? The abandoned east wing of Blackridge University. It had been closed for renovations for over 30 years, but no one ever worked on it. It just sat there, a relic of the past, decaying behind chained doors and broken windows. "We have to get in there," Mark whispered as they stood in the shadows, staring up at the towering, ivy-covered structure. Leah hesitated. What if this is real? What if we find something we shouldn't?" Mark met her eyes, his expression serious. "Then we expose it." With bolt cutters stolen from the maintenance shed, they broke the rusted chain and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. The hallways stretched into darkness, lined with lockers covered in claw-like scratches. Desks sat untouched, books open as if frozen in time. Then they heard it, a whisper, faint, indistinct, yet undeniably real. Mark grabbed Leah's arm. "Did you hear that?" Leah swallowed hard, her pulse hammering in her ears. "Yeah, we should go." But Mark moved forward, drawn to something unseen. The whispering grew louder, more urgent, echoing through the empty corridors. Then footsteps, not theirs. The classroom door slammed shut behind them. Leah let out a sharp breath. "Mark, we need to leave. Now." But Mark was staring at something at the end of the hall. A figure, dressed in tattered clothes, head tilted at an unnatural angle, eyes hollow and dark. Stepped toward them. The lights flickered. The walls groaned. Then the screaming started, and everything went black. Leah's eyes shot open. Darkness. A suffocating silence pressed against her ears. interrupted only by the distant sound of water dripping. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The east wing, the whispers, the figure at the end of the hall, and the screaming. Where was Mark? She sat up abruptly, her breath ragged. The floor beneath her was cold and hard, concrete. The air was damp, filled with the scent of mold and something else, something rotten. She reached for her phone, but the screen remained black, dead. The dim glow of emergency lights flickered along the edges of the walls, casting eerie, shifting shadows. "Mark?" she called, her voice hoarse. No answer. She swallowed the lump in her throat and rose to her feet. The last thing she remembered was the figure stepping toward them. Had they passed out? Had someone dragged them here? Her heartbeat pounded as she scanned the space. She was in a long corridor, lined with doorways that seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions. The walls were cracked, the paint peeling away like dead skin. Then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The lockers. They were the same as the ones in the old photos of Blackridge from the 1980s. The same dull blue metal, the same combination locks. But that wasn't possible. The school had remodeled years ago. These shouldn't be here. A low creak echoed through the hallway. Leah turned sharply, every nerve in her body on edge. A single door stood slightly ajar at the end of the corridor, swaying ever so slightly. Cold sweat dripped down her back as she took slow, hesitant steps toward it. Then she heard it, a whisper, soft, distant but layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. She froze. It was coming from inside the room. Holding her breath, she pushed the door open wider. The hinges let out a tortured groan. The room beyond was a classroom frozen in time. Desks were arranged in neat rows, notebooks and pens still lying atop them, their pages yellowed with age. A thick layer of dust coated everything. Then her eyes landed on the chalkboard. Names, scrawled in frantic, overlapping handwriting, covering every inch of the surface. Some were crossed out. Some had been etched so deeply into the board that the wood had splintered. Leah's stomach twisted. She recognized some of them. Claire Hensley, the student from the diary. Michael Graves, Rachel Thompson, Lucas Evans. All names of students who had vanished. Then, at the very bottom, freshly written in jagged white strokes, Mark Harris, Leah Carter. Her breath hitched. Behind her, something scraped against the floor. Leah spun around just as the classroom door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed the room. She choked back a scream, her fingers fumbling for anything. Her phone, her keys, anything she could use as a weapon. But the air had changed. It was heavier now, charged with an unnatural energy. And then, she felt it, a breath against her ear, a voice, so close it was almost inside her skull. "You're not supposed to be here." Leah bolted for the door, but the moment she touched the handle, something yanked her backward. She hit the floor hard, the impact rattling through her bones. Shadows coiled at the edges of the room, shifting, twisting, taking shape. Figures began emerging from the darkness. Some were missing eyes. Others had mouths frozen in silent screams. Their clothes were tattered. Their skin stretched too tightly over their bones. Leah scrambled backward as they reached toward her, their fingers elongated, grasping. Then the whispering began again, more urgent this time. The air was filled with overlapping voices, hissing and pleading all at once. "Help us! Run! He's coming!" Leah clamped her hands over her ears, squeezing her eyes shut. "Please stop," she begged. Then silence. When she opened her eyes, the figures were gone. The classroom was empty, but something else had changed. The door was now wide open, and standing just outside, watching her with hollow, sunken eyes, was Mark. Leah gasped. "Mark!" She scrambled to her feet and rushed toward him. But the moment she stepped across the threshold, she stopped cold. Something was wrong. Mark didn't move. His arms hung limply at his sides, his skin sickly pale, almost gray. His lips barely moved as he whispered something, his voice barely above a breath. "Run!" Then the lights flickered, and behind him, in the shifting darkness, something enormous began to rise. Something with too many limbs, too many mouths, and a voice that was not one, but many. "You should not have come here." The last thing Leah saw was the thing reaching for her before the world was swallowed by blackness once again. Leah awoke to the sensation of something wet seeping into her clothes. A sharp, metallic scent filled her nostrils. She groaned, her body stiff and aching. Her eyes fluttered open, but the dim red emergency lights above barely illuminated her surroundings. She was lying on a cold, damp floor, one that was slick beneath her fingers. She didn't want to look. She looked anyway. Blood. Not a pool, not splatters. An entire floor covered in smeared, hand-shaped streaks of blood. Panic seized her chest, but she forced herself to breathe. The blood wasn't fresh. It was old, darkened, and crusted against the cracked tiles. That didn't make it any less horrifying. Where was she? The hallway was gone. The classroom was gone. The decayed lockers, the dusty desks. Everything had disappeared. Instead, she was in what looked like an old medical wing. The walls were lined with rusted gurneys and toppled over wheelchairs. Metal cabinets stood open, their contents spilled across the floor. Bandages, syringes, bottles of medication long since expired. The air was thick with dust, mildew, and something sickly sweet, like rotting fruit. She pushed herself up on shaking arms, her heart hammering. "Mark?" she croaked. Silence. Then a sound. A slow, deliberate dragging of something heavy across the floor. Leah's breath hitched. She turned her head toward the noise, her pulse thudding in her ears. Something was in the hallway beyond the door. Something that moved with a weighty, unnatural gait. She pressed herself against the nearest cabinet, trying to steady her breathing. The dragging sound stopped. A pause. Then a whisper, low, rasping, right outside the door. "I see you." Leah bit her lip to keep from screaming. The door creaked. Then footsteps. Slow, unsteady, moving toward her. She had seconds to act. She frantically scanned the room for an exit, spotting a small supply closet in the corner. Without thinking, she sprinted across the floor, throwing herself inside just as the door to the infirmary swung open. She shut the closet door gently, pressing her back against the shelves, her body trembling. Through the narrow slats, she saw it. A figure, tall, too tall, its spine arched unnaturally, its limbs elongated, the skin stretched taut over its bones like dried leather. Its head lolled to the side, as though its neck had been snapped, twitched with each movement, its joints popping, cracking. Leah's stomach churned. The creature stepped further into the room, its bare feet smearing the old blood as it moved. It sniffed the air. Leah swallowed hard, turned. For the first time, she saw its face, or rather, the lack of one. Where there should have been eyes, there were deep, hollow pits. Its mouth was just an open, black void, stretching down far too long, the skin splitting at the edges. Took another step. Leah clamped a hand over her mouth. Then, its head snapped sharply toward the closet. It knew. A low, guttural clicking came from its throat as it lunged toward the closet. Leah threw herself to the side just as the door exploded inward, splinters raining down around her. She scrambled to her feet, vaulting over the overturned gurney, her mind screaming at her to run. The creature let out a warped, inhuman shriek, its distorted limbs moving in unnatural bursts as it pursued her. She sprinted into the hallway, her shoes skidding on the blood-stained tiles. She didn't look back. She could hear it behind her, the erratic pounding of feet, the scraping of bone against the walls. A door at the end of the hall, slightly open. She pushed herself harder, her lungs burning. Then a hand grabbed her ankle. She hit the ground hard. A vice-like grip dragged her backward. Claws dug into her skin, the pain sharp, searing. She twisted, kicking wildly. Her foot connected with something, a brittle crack. The creature let out a shriek, recoiling just enough for her to break free. She scrambled to her feet, lunged for the door, and slammed it shut behind her. Darkness. Silence. Leah collapsed against the door, gasping for breath, her body trembling violently. The creature didn't follow. It was as if it couldn't. She took a shaky breath, forcing herself to take in her surroundings. The room was small, cramped, a storage closet. No, not a closet, a records room. The shelves were lined with files, boxes, and old university documents. And in the middle of the room, illuminated by the dim emergency light, a chair, and someone was sitting in it. Leah's breath caught. Mark! He sat perfectly still, too still. His head was bowed, his arms limp at his sides. His clothes were tattered, stained with something dark. Leah took a slow step forward. Mark, please. His head snapped up. His eyes, they were wrong. Not hollow like the creature's, but distant, glassy. Then he spoke. They're watching. Leah's stomach twisted. Who's watching? She whispered. Mark's lips trembled. Everyone who was taken. They never left. Then he lifted a shaking hand, pointing at the shelves. Leah followed his gaze and felt the ground drop beneath her. The files weren't normal university records. They were case files. Every missing student, every disappearance, going back decades. Some folders were old, their edges yellowed with age. Others were pristine. Leah's fingers trembled as she reached for the most recent one. She flipped it open. A photo stared back at her. Mark Harris. Leah's breath hitched. She reached for another file. Her heart stopped. Leah Carter. Her own name. Her own photo. With a date stamped beneath it. October 17th, 2025. Today. Her hands shook. No, this isn't. A cold breath drifted across her ear. And a whisper, soft as death itself. You were never meant to leave. Then, the lights flickered, and the door slammed open. The door slammed open with such force that the shelves rattled, old files toppling to the floor. Leah whirled around, her pulse hammering in her ears. The doorway yawned open into darkness, an abyss of shifting shadows and the faint sound of something breathing. Mark didn't move. He remained slumped in the chair, his glassy eyes fixed on nothing. Leah took a shaky step back. Mark, we have to go. He didn't react. His lips parted, his voice barely above a whisper. There is no leaving. A cold dread curled around her spine. Then, a hand emerged from the darkness. Long, gnarled fingers gripped the edge of the doorframe. The skin cracked and stretched tight over bone. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, and the temperature in the room plummeted. The thing was here. Leah stumbled backward, knocking into the desk. Papers scattered to the floor, revealing more photos beneath them. Photos of students who had disappeared. Their eyes had been scratched out. The whispering started again. A chorus of voices overlapping, pleading, warning. You shouldn't have come. It won't let you leave. It's watching. Leah's breath came in shallow gasps. Then Mark stood. But it wasn't Mark anymore. His movements were jerky, unnatural. as if he was being pulled by invisible strings. His head lolled to the side, and his lips curled into a twisted, hollow grin. And then, in a voice not his own, "Run." The lights flickered violently, and the thing in the doorway moved. Leah lunged for the nearest shelf, shoving it with all her strength. It toppled over, slamming into the doorframe just as the creature lunged forward. A shriek tore through the room, a horrible, inhuman wail, as the thing collided with the metal shelf, momentarily pinned. Leah didn't wait. She grabbed Mark's arm, yanking him toward the back of the records room. A single emergency exit loomed ahead, a rusted door barely visible through the dust and clutter. "Please don't be locked." She reached for the handle, turned. Leah threw herself against the door, shoving it open. Cold air rushed over her skin as she and Mark tumbled out into the night. But something was wrong. The campus was different. The buildings loomed taller, more decayed, as if they had been abandoned for decades. The trees were dead, their skeletal branches twisting unnaturally toward the sky. The street lamps flickered weakly, barely illuminating the cracked pavement. And worst of all, there were no people, not a single soul. The campus was empty, silent, as if it had been swallowed whole. Mark stumbled beside her, his breaths ragged. But his eyes were clearing. He blinked rapidly, his body shuddering. "Leah?" His voice was hoarse, confused. She gripped his arms, her own shaking. "We have to go. Now." She turned, scanning the campus for any sign of movement. The main road leading off campus stretched ahead, empty and bathed in dim, flickering light. She grabbed Mark's hand and ran. Their footsteps echoed against the pavement, the only sound in the unnatural stillness. Leah didn't dare look back. Then a new sound, a deep, resonant bell tolling from somewhere within the campus. Slow, rhythmic. Each chime seemed to vibrate through the very ground, rattling her teeth. Mark staggered, gripping his head. "No, no, no, no." Leah pulled him forward, desperation clawing at her throat. "We're almost there." But the moment they stepped onto the main road, everything shifted. The road beneath them vanished. The street lamps snapped out. The world folded in on itself. And they were back in the East Wing, back in the hallway of the vanished. Leah's stomach twisted violently. She let out a ragged scream, clawing at the air. It wasn't possible. They had made it out. But the walls were there, the peeling paint, the rusted lockers covered in deep scratches, the ceiling dripping with something black. Mark fell to his knees, his body shaking. "It won't let us leave." The bell tolled again, and from the end of the hall, they came. Figures, shadowed, distorted, their faces stretched into silent screams. Some had no eyes, some had too many. Their movements were unnatural, as if reality itself fought against their presence. And at the center of them all, standing impossibly tall, the thing that had chased her, the thing that had spoken, the thing that had waited. Its head twisted toward them, and for the first time, Leah saw what lay beneath its hood. A face, or rather faces, hundreds of them, shifting, merging, screaming in silence. The faces of every student who had vanished. Leah's knees nearly buckled. Then they spoke, not with their mouths, but directly into her mind. "We never left." Her vision blurred. The walls breathed. The figures moved closer. The air grew heavy, crushing. Mark gripped her hand. His eyes were wild, desperate. "Leah!" The whispers rose. The shadows consumed. The bell tolled one final time, and the world was swallowed whole. Leah's screams were swallowed by the void. Darkness collapsed inward, and the world folded over itself. She felt like she was falling falling into something endless. Then, she hit the ground. Her body landed hard against cold tile, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. She gasped, the world spinning around her, her ears ringing from the final toll of the unseen bell. Silence. Stillness. Leah forced her eyes open. She was back in the hallway, but something was wrong. The east wing was pristine. No peeling paint. No broken lockers. The air smelled clean, untouched by the decay and dust that had coated it before. The flickering emergency lights were gone, replaced by soft, fluorescent lighting. It looked normal, like nothing had ever happened. Mark lay beside her, groaning as he pushed himself up. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. Leah's hands trembled as she looked around. Mark, what just? Then she saw them. Students, walking past, chatting, laughing. Some had backpacks slung over their shoulders. Others clutched books. Like any normal day. Except Leah's stomach dropped. She knew these students. She had seen them before, in the case files, the missing ones. But they weren't ghosts. They were alive. They looked real. A girl passed by, Claire Hensley, the student who had vanished in 1983. She didn't spare Leah a glance, her face neutral as she flipped through a notebook. Leah turned, her breath quickening. Another student, Jason Myers, missing in 1995, walked past, laughing with a friend. Then, a voice. Hey, Leah! She turned sharply. A group of students stood near a stairwell, waving at her. Their faces were familiar, too familiar. Then she realized why. Their faces were in the case files. Leah took a step back, her chest tightening. No, this isn't real. She turned to Mark, shaking him. Mark, we have to go. But Mark just stared past her, his face slack, his eyes unfocused. Leah followed his gaze. There, standing at the end of the hall, was the thing. No longer a towering horror. No longer a shifting, faceless entity. Now, it wore a professor's suit, a normal face, a smile that didn't reach its eyes. Dr. Whitmore, the same Dr. Whitmore from Claire Hensley's diary. The same Dr. Whitmore who had been here for decades. He adjusted his glasses, his expression warm, too warm. Ah, Leah, Mark, there you are. I was wondering when you'd settle in. Leah's stomach turned to ice. Mark blinked slowly, confusion flickering across his features. Settle in. Whitmore stepped closer, hands folded in front of him. His shadow was too long. It stretched across the floor, twisting in unnatural angles. You're students here, aren't you? He said. You've always been students here. Leah shook her head violently. No, we're not. We were investigating the disappearances. Whitmore chuckled, as if she had told a joke. Disappearances? He gestured to the bustling hallway. But no one's missing, Leah. Her hands clenched into fists. That's a lie. He simply smiled. Then tell me, what year is it? Leah opened her mouth, stopped. The answer should have come easily, but her mind blanked. She couldn't remember. She turned to Mark, panic rising in her throat. What year is it? She whispered. Mark's expression twisted. He looked around, his breathing picking up. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His hands shot to his throat, his face contorting in horror. He couldn't answer, because the answer didn't exist. Because they had no year, no past, no future. Only Blackridge University. Whitmore's voice was gentle, almost kind. You've always been here. You just forgot. Leah's hands trembled. No, this wasn't right. She turned to run, but the hallway stretched. The students walking by suddenly weren't walking. They were frozen, their faces twisting, melting, contorting into something grotesque. mouths opened too wide, eyes reversed. The sound of cracking bones filled the air. Mark grabbed Leah's arm, his grip iron-tight. His eyes, they were changing, turning black. Leah choked on a sob, yanking away from him. "Mark," she pleaded. "We have to fight this." But Mark only smiled, a glassy, vacant smile. And in that moment, Leah understood. She was already gone. She had been gone the moment she entered the East Wing. And now, she was just another student at Blackridge University. Just another name in a file. Just another whisper in the halls. The bell tolled one final time. And Leah Carter vanished. Epilogue. A week later, a new group of students sat in the Blackridge University library, studying late into the night. A freshman named Daniel absently flipped through an old yearbook he had found tucked between the shelves. He turned a page, paused. A photo. A girl with dark hair, a sharp gaze. Her name beneath the image read, Leah Carter, sophomore journalism major. Daniel frowned. That name sounded familiar. He glanced up at his friend. "Hey, do you know a Leah Carter?" he asked. His friend furrowed his brow. Then, a blank stare. "No," he said slowly. "Never heard of her."